We go to back to school night. I have a C in math. And my mom says, what can we do to help Steve do better in math? And the teacher looks at my mom and dad and says, well, C's an average grade. Wrong thing to say to Mrs. C. Wrong.
Yeah.
My dad had to get between her and the teacher.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Book Leads Impactful Books for Life and Leadership. I'm your series host and leadership performance coach, John Jaramillo. This podcast series is about getting to the books that have impacted the lives of the people in my network. So these are great leads that I'll be having these conversations with to get to those books that have made the biggest difference in their life, their work, their personal life, whatever it may be. All those worlds intersect. And my guest today is Steve Cafiero. And having worked in key client-facing roles at Gartner, Forrester, SAP, AT&T, VMware, Broadcom, Aetna, UBS, Amazon, AIG, higher education, and several privately held firms, Steve brings a wealth of practical insights and industry knowledge to his practice. Steve is a professionally trained and credentialed coach. He completed his formal training at Ericsson Coaching International and the SAP Coaching Academy. He continues to invest in his development through ongoing education and advanced training to stay at the forefront of the coaching excellence. Steve's educational background includes a Bachelor of Science from the State University of New York and an MBA from Pace University. Based in Fairfield County, Connecticut, he finds joy in his family, music, cycling, and golfing pursuits. And I got to meet Steve through communication strategist and coach Nancy Berger. And Nancy, I had met years ago, and I was lucky enough to have her on this series in August of 2023 in episode 63, where we covered the book Tracking Wonder by Jeffrey Davis. Then I also had Nancy as the inaugural episode of the leadership syllabus in July 2025. Mod number 1, where she covered thought transformation. So Steve, I'm always grateful. That's been a great byproduct of this series, is just kind of extending this network one spoke at a time, having great people introduce me to great people. So I thank you for your connection, the conversations we've had in the past, and for being here today.
It's a pleasure to be here, John. Thank you for such a nice introduction. And what we're going to talk about today, the book that we're going to talk about, kind of lends to exactly the way you introduced how you met me, through Nancy.
Yeah, it's always great to hear those stories.
Yeah.
People's experiences with networking. Networking is not cookie cutter. Relationship building is not cookie cutter. None of that is cookie cutter. So I always find it fascinating to see what someone's particular recipe is. Now, Steve, for people to understand who you are and to see who's sharing the book with us, can you tell us about your work today, your day-to-day? What is your work looking like these days?
My work today is primarily with C-suite and senior level executives. And really what I do is work with them on helping them scale their business, scale their skills, scale their team, scale their capabilities, decision-making abilities, and things like that. It's been a fascinating journey that I've really been on full tilt for the last couple of years. And I have found it to be extremely rewarding, educational, eye-opening, energizing, any kind of action verb you want to put to it. It's just been, I'm very fortunate to be able to do this at this stage of my life and career.
Yeah, it's incredible. I just spoke to students at the University of Hartford just this morning about my career path. And it's interesting how I think one of the students had asked, what's the best lesson that you've learned to date, or something to that effect. And it really brought to mind the fact that even as you go, even as you're later in your career or a few decades into your career, you can still be surprised by something you haven't seen before, appreciative of something new that you've never, acknowledged or realized before. So it's incredible how in this coaching field of ours, we can keep learning and still be shocked by what we see out there. Shocked or surprised, not shocked in a bad way, or surprised.
Enlightened as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Good one. That's a great one. Okay.
So,
I didn't think of that one. That's a great one.
Yeah. When you think about the most significant times and occurrences in your life, These all come back to connections probably that you've made, whether it's through school, work, family, neighborhood, extracurricular activities, clubs, whatever it is. Any kind of breakthrough, any kind of tremendous event, any kind of advancement in your career or your personal life, all comes down to connections. And I prefer to think of the environment that I operate in as around connections. I don't think of networking. Networking kind of has it's done. It's all over the place. It's on LinkedIn. It's wherever it is. I prefer connection building. It's much deeper. It's broader. You take the long-term view when you're building connections. And that's why the book that I wanted to talk about today was so attractive to me. And it's The Lost Art of Connecting by Susan McPherson. It was written, I guess, during the pandemic. So it came out in 2022 or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. And when I was talking to those students, I said, networking is great. Getting your face out there, sharing the details of what you do. Yeah. But don't let it be transactional.
Right.
Provide some depth, provide some substance behind that connection. Make it so it's relational, transformational, all those things. Steve, to understand how you got to this point, can you walk me through, Steve Cafiero, this is your life. But can you walk me through what is it that put you on the path to today, or not even knowing you were going to end up here, but what did your life look like or your path look like when you were getting started, say from college age, either going into college or into the workforce to now? Right. What are those obstacles, those hurdles, those pivot points from then that led to now?
When I graduated from college, I was a knucklehead. I was a 21-year-old guy. I was not sure what I wanted to do. I took a transformative trip cross-country for 4 months with a buddy of mine in a van, which was eye-opening and one of the most phenomenal growth experiences I've ever had. You want to talk about connection building and meeting people from all over the world, which is what you do when you're camping out in a national park or what have you out west somewhere. It was fascinating. So then I moved to the Cape after I got back from that trip. I had a job with a small startup that was involved in solar engineering that I thought was a fascinating field. The timing for that wasn't great, so I moved back to New York. I ended up working for AT&T. I got my real start at AT&T a few years after college. Did my MBA while working for them, got hired into the management program there, had a really good 15-year run there, then went into financial services, raising capital for alternative investments because of where I lived. It's a bedroom community for Wall Street. Met my wife, got married, moved to Connecticut, and had a couple kids, had the path, right? Went to work back in technology after the financial services adventure and left corporate America 2 years ago. I was fortunate that I was trained as a coach while working for my last company. Now, that's the really interesting story, is because I have been a connector through most of my professional career. I've been in sales, so I've been out there, and I've had a lot of relationships with clients and companies and so on over the course of many, many years. And I was having breakfast with a good buddy of mine at our local diner, and he said to me, he had just exited the workforce, and a bunch of his peers had exited the workforce, not necessarily of their choosing. And we were of a certain age, and he looked at me and he said, "What are you going to do next? This run is not going to last forever for us." And I said, I have talked to a lot of people about that. And I have a lot of people come to me and ask me for perspective on career and life and so on and so forth. And I said to him, I think executive coaching might be kind of fun. That might be a neat thing to do, kind of an offshoot, right? And the next lever, the next step, the next act in the whole play. And he said, wouldn't it be cool if the company you're with could provide hours that you could then get some kind of certification around? And I said, that's a really neat idea. And this is what happens when you talk to really bright people. even though he didn't know anything about this field, he had the wisdom and the exposure and the experience to say, what if you could get a cert, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Turns out this firm I was with had a really robust coaching program, and they put me through a year-long training program, of which I was, during the pandemic, I was on Teams and Zoom calls with people all around the world for a year doing this training. So when it came time for me to leave corporate America, my path was set. I had my LLC set up already. I had clients, and I knew what I wanted to do. And it was kind of step off one escalator and get on another one. And in addition to the work I do with Tide Shift Partners, I'm also a board of trustees member for a local nonprofit, which has been extremely rewarding as well.
Where to begin? Okay, so for you right out of the gate, you're like, out of college, I was a knucklehead. I want to start there.
We got a lot to talk about then, don't we?
Okay, so not even the knucklehead part, but just going into college, what did you go to college for and why? Because I don't necessarily know that it ties to what you ended up doing. Maybe it does, but what did you go to school for and why?
I was a business major, marketing concentrate.
Okay.
I was always somewhat extroverted. I knew from first semester undergrad that accounting wasn't going to be my thing because it didn't make any sense to me. So I was the first one in my family to go away to college. I was the second one in the family to get a degree. The first one was my dad. Second was me. Third was my brother. Fourth was my sister. So my parents set a high bar in terms of education when we were young. It was understood. We were going to go to college at a minimum, grad school probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what made you do marketing? Obviously, I heard the accounting's not for me.
Yeah.
But give me a little more about why marketing, why that stood out to you.
Seemed energetic.
Aside from no accounting.
Yeah. Addition by subtraction.
Yeah, exactly. The extroversion I'm curious about. Maybe how that ties into the marketing. What was it? Was it the kind of the promotional, the advertising, the getting the word out there?
It was all of that, John. Yeah, it was all of that. There wasn't a sales degree. It was a marketing degree, right? And there was the two were pretty closely linked in a lot of ways. A lot of people that get involved in marketing are extroverts, forward-thinking, outward-looking. They have to be by definition. It just fit. It just fit for me.
Okay. And then, what I was going to ask was, we got into the education, the MBA, and the MBA was a concentration in something.
I was at AT&T at the time, and they paid for my MBA.
Okay.
With the understanding that you would do something relevant. So information technology.
Okay.
My MBA is management information systems, which is not even known anymore. Information technology. Yeah. I guess if it was today, it would be called an AI major. I don't really know.
Yeah. No, but I remember when I was in college in the late 90s, MIS, I remember that was the IT concentration title or path to take. So for you, what did your parents, I'm always curious about people's background. So what did your parents do that informed kind of and impressed upon you college is so important?
Yeah, my mom did not go to college, although she was really bright and very forward-looking for her generation. My dad went to college at night with 4 kids. He graduated undergrad when I was 8 years old.
Wow.
And I'm the oldest of 4. I went to his graduation, which was a phenomenal experience that's etched in my mind still to this day.
Is it?
I'm sitting there. We're at Fairleigh Dickinson University in New Jersey. I'm sitting next to my mom on a beautiful day in May.
Yeah.
And she says, when they call your dad's name, I'm going to hold you up and I want you to cheer. So they call my dad's name. He walks across the stage. My mom holds me up and I scream, "That's my daddy."
Oh. Steve, don't make me cry, man. That
Oh,
stuff gets me. That
that's
stuff
one,
gets
right?
me. Oof.
To this day, John, it's one of the best memories I have. Being with my mom, watching my dad, seeing the pride on his
Yeah.
face. It's great.
Oof.
It's great.
And that sets such a, like it's in your programming.
Yeah.
You know where that comes from. You know what the work was. You know what he would, even at that age, you know something important is going on. And then later you keep that memory and you're like, okay, that was his college graduation. Okay, this is what he worked on.
Right.
Okay, so now the knucklehead. Were you going to say something?
Well, I was going to relay just a quick story if I could.
Sure,
And
of
I
course.
can't help but tell this because, um, and this is all about legacy, right? This is all about cross-generational aspiration, expectation, that kind of stuff. My dad asked my mom to marry him 3 months after they started dating in the 50s in New York. And my mom's question to him was, are you going to finish college? And my dad said, I don't know. Then my mom said, well, I don't know.
How did,
And
at that point, how did they meet? Meaning,
they met at a St. Patrick's Day dance in the Bronx.
okay, okay.
So my mom basically said, I'm not marrying you if you're not going to finish college. So a couple months later, he came back and said, I'll finish. She goes, I'll marry you. Boom.
Leap of faith on her end, huh?
Woo, I know. And gutsy in the
Yeah.
50s in the Bronx. Are you kidding? It was great. So my mom set the tone back in 1956 for what my family would go through now. And now our daughters are college graduates, did extremely well in college, and my eldest just graduated law school.
Wow. It's amazing how does that work into the bloodline of your family? So you just mentioned like she said it. Meanwhile, she's the one that didn't go to school, but she
Right.
said it, that expectation. So can you speak to that? What words do you put to that?
Aspirational, focus,
Yeah.
take the next step. Nobody's better than you. You can do it.
When did you realize that? When did you start really hearing that lesson, seeing that lesson? Was that as a kid,
I'll
seeing her
never,
in action? Was it later, looking back?
I'll never forget this, John. Um, my dad ended up with a pretty good job, and we moved to Southern California, from New Jersey to Southern Cal when I was 10. And I'm 11 years old, and I'm in sixth grade. And it's back to school night at the middle school in Orange County, California. Very nice area. And that's one thing, too. We always lived in the nicest places that my parents could afford. They didn't drive the nicest cars. We didn't take the best vacations, but we lived in the best neighborhoods that they could afford for that aspirational kind
Yeah.
of attitude, right? We go to back to school night. I have a C in math. And my mom says, what can we do to help Steve do better in math? And the teacher looks at my mom and dad and says, well, C's an average grade. Wrong thing to
Yeah.
say to Mrs. C. Wrong. My
Yeah.
dad had to get between her and the teacher.
Yeah.
And what I remember my mom saying is, that's not acceptable.
You remember that.
Oh, like it was yesterday, John.
It's little things like that. My kid said the same thing to me too. He said he got a C and that's a meeting.
Yeah.
And I want to find the balance between not him feeling the pressure, but at the same time, it's like, hey man,
Yeah.
I don't need you to be perfect. I don't need you to get the A's, but
Right.
what I do want to see is some incremental improvement from this.
Yeah.
And it's just for yourself. I always tell them anything I'm sharing with you is for you.
Right.
I'll set the bar. You can set the bar on me. You can challenge me.
Yeah.
But the next one, what can I do, even incrementally? Not so slow that you don't improve by the end of the year,
Right.
but it's for you. Like, have some pride in your work. Yes, meeting, but how much are you capable of? I don't want you to lower yourself to any particular bar. What's the bar that you can reach?
Right.
So I hope that my lesson to him stays in his mind the way your mom's lesson stands out in your mind, in your memory.
Kids see what you do.
Yeah.
Actions speak louder than words, never more so than with regard to your kids.
So,
And
okay.
it's
Oh, go
important
ahead.
it's important to recognize and encourage the effort.
Yeah.
That you hit on the right point, the incremental improvement.
Yeah.
And the incremental improvement comes from consistent effort over time.
Mm. Yeah. It's that pride too.
Yeah.
You know, I'm hoping to set that in his DNA now so it becomes a part of his own programming. You know, your work, that's a point of pride. So what do you want to show?
Right.
What is it you want to show other people? Because if you don't show other people, they're going to build their own story and narrative. So I appreciate that story. And it gives me hope that kind of those little things that you plant in their mind now stands out and makes such a difference in their life.
You can, for sure.
Okay, so now the knucklehead.
Yeah.
So coming out of college, you say knucklehead. There's a reason you say knucklehead. Tell me what that was. You were just so burned out from school. You were over it. What was your thinking in there?
Well, here's the thing. I'm probably being a little hard on myself. I was always moving in a positive direction, but I was pretty scattered and I wasted some time.
But the wasting of time, is that the cross country journey?
No, it's after college. It's moving to the Cape for a little bit. It's having another couple of jobs that were not of the caliber I could have. But I leveraged one job to get in at AT&T into a management training program there, which really worked out really well for me.
But I'm sure even those other jobs that weren't quite the ones that you believe you should have gone for from the get-go, I'm sure there's something that you take away from those, or you took away, right? Any little experience, even if it's not ideal at the time, somehow shapes you in some way.
It's exactly what happened. It wasn't easy. I wasn't making a lot of money. I really had to hustle. There were a couple of sales jobs.
So Steve, thank you for that incredible breakdown. So my next question always is, does it make sense from your childhood that this is what you're doing? Not that you knew you were going to end up here, but how do you tie in who you were as a kid to the work you're doing now and where you are today? And you gave a lot of insight, but I want to give you that opportunity explicitly with the question to really consider what you share. So what is it that resonates from your childhood in your work today?
You know, John, there's two things. One is playing team sports. I played baseball ever since I could remember. Little League baseball, both in New Jersey and Southern Cal. But even more than that, or on top of that, I guess, it's when you move from the East Coast to the West Coast at 10 years old in the middle of a school year, and you walk into a classroom and you have to figure out how you're going to fit in or who you want to be friends with.
Oof.
You have to kind of have your radar up a bit. Look around, figure things out, listen. And even more so, moving back from Southern Cal to Westchester County, New York, when I was 14, halfway through my freshman year in high school. And I was a Southern Cal surf dude, flip-flops and sunburn
I'm trying to picture that. That's
all
great.
that kind of stuff. And I come back to Upper Westchester, New York, this little town. The high school was like 800 kids.
Two different worlds.
It was crazy.
They're on the opposite sides of the country, and they are as different as you can get. There's arguments for other different parts and there are variances, but yeah, like that, the mentality, the speed, the laid back versus like the hustle. It's just, that's incredible.
It was incredible. And, you walk into the cafeteria your first day of school and it's January and it's snowing and all this kind of stuff. The guys are wearing flannel shirt. What's a flannel shirt? Who has, right? Work boots? What's all that about? But
Yeah.
it was fun. And I was fortunate that the guys were really welcoming. They'd been together since, the crew had been together since they were in kindergarten.
Yeah.
And they gave me a shot, and it's probably because I didn't come on as arrogant or anything. And I listened and I talked to them. I found out what they were all about. I kind of blended in. I wasn't a jock. I wasn't, a hippie kind of guy. I wasn't a super nerd. I kind of floated a bit, and it taught me to be observant in situations and adaptable. So if you ask what led me to this kind of work, those kind of experiences did. Being on a team for so many years, I played softball in competitive leagues through my 20s and played a lot of other sports too. And the moving back and forth and being in situations where I didn't know a lot of people and I just had to adapt. I think all those kind of things make you a little more intuitive.
So that works into the next question. Maybe you already answered it. You have, all your qualities, but what stands out to you as your superpower?
I think my ability to be interested in people. I am genuinely, keenly interested in people. When I ask questions, I really try to listen. And I try to think of who can I connect this person to? How can I help? Is there somebody else that you should be talking to? What does this person know that I don't know that could be helpful to me or my friends or my colleagues or my family, my kids, whatever?
So was it, obviously everything you've shared lends itself to that, but where do you think that comes from? Because you talked about the adaptability piece, you talked about the education piece, and there are other pieces that I'm maybe missing.
Right.
But what is it that kind of informs your approach to connecting people? And we'll get into the book after another question, but
Sure.
so you got the adaptability, so I can come
Yeah.
into an environment, I can learn what people are about, I can listen.
Right.
But then what is it about, where in your story do you pull out your ability to connect to other people?
It's kind of crazy. But I come from a really big family and a lot of different types of people. And I have a special needs youngest brother who I'm a guardian for. And he was a real handful when he was younger. So we were put in a lot of situations where we could have been embarrassed because of him acting up or him looking and acting differently and stuff like that. And having been around that kind of environment exposed me to different behavior, things like that. I just knew how to smooth it out. And I just have I can spot certain things very quickly, right? Having lived coast to coast, having had a bunch of different experiences professionally and personally, I've just been really lucky that I've been able to develop certain insights on certain things. I've been in several different industries. I've been in research, tech, financial services, software, and no matter what industry you're in, people are kind of the same. Even though the acronyms are different, the clock speed is different, the digits are different.
Yep.
Just a really broad, I've been a generalist, really. And I think that's been really helpful in my coaching practice because I can relate in a lot of different ways. I was just speaking with an organization out in the Midwest that's interested in perhaps bringing me on as one of their coaches for hire, right? And one of the things that they really liked about my background was that I have been in multiple industries, and I have experience, and I just know intuitively what people are going through, whether it's the pressure of transformation, whether it's the pressure of international competition, whether it's the pressure of succession or leading high potentials into the next level. So, when you've been around as many decades, used the term before decades, and I wanted to call you out on that. There's no need to bring up my age at this point.
Hey, decades here too, my friend. Decades here too.
Being
Believe me.
For many decades.
I was talking about us.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that,
Us,
John.
not just you.
You and me, baby.
Yeah.
So it's, being around a lot of decades and seeing a lot of different things, you just know. It's like Arthur Brooks talks about fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence, right? And fluid intelligence is what my kids have. They see something, whoop, right in. They absorb it, they can translate it, they can spit it out, blah, blah, blah. Me, it takes a little longer. But crystallized intelligence, when you get to be our age or our experience level, you see something that's going to happen 3 months from now, you see it now. You walk into a room, you can read the room differently just because you have all these layers of intuitive
data.
And it's all stacked up in here. And it just you can kind of sift through it and pull it out and say, okay, I got it. Right? One of my very good friends, a professional colleague of mine, whose dad was a very high achieving individual. He said, you should be able to walk into a conference room, walk into a business meeting, and in 3 minutes, know who the smartest person is in that meeting. And if you go into a meeting thinking that you should be, the way you perceive that meeting is going to be a little different. You're going to think about who's asking the questions, who's talking, who's not talking. And by the same token, within 4 minutes, you should know who the least intelligent person is in that room, or perhaps a disruptor. And these kinds of things come about after many years of experience. And I think that's something that I bring to my practice, just being able to sleuth that stuff out by asking questions and hearing answers and making observations.
Amen. So, Steve, then one other piece that I want to follow up on before I jump to the next question is your extroversion. So was that always there? Or was it something that was enhanced? Because you mentioned extroversion as it applies to going into marketing, right? There wasn't a sales feel or concentration, so you wanted to do marketing. It was like the next best thing, to getting the word out there.
Right.
Always an extrovert, or was it the sports that kind of enhanced that even more, which it typically does? But were you always an extrovert?
Yes. Yeah, it's just who I've been. I'm the eldest son of the youngest son.
I followed that. I did follow that.
So, and my mom was an extrovert, and my dad was really fun to be around, and often was the host of company functions and stuff like that too. So I had good role models that it's fun to be that way.
Is that why you mentioned your dad was the youngest, just because he was the one that could maybe get away with things the most? Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. Steve, obviously this is our wheelhouse, but how would you, before we jump into the book, how would you define leadership? What does it mean to you?
The first thought that popped into my head was servant leadership. And that's something that in my practice, I see the best leaders doing, right? In the armed forces, the enlisted guys eat first, then the officer does. So I was listening to a podcast of a CEO of a manufacturing firm here in Connecticut just yesterday. And she was talking about reading the room, listening to your people, doing what's right for them. If you do what's right for them, they will do what's right for your customers. And in turn, that's right for the business. So great leaders listen. They don't always have to agree with everything, but great leaders listen. And they admit when they don't know something. They show a certain degree of vulnerability, which gives them credibility. And that is something that I found fascinating in my practice, in that leaders at a certain level don't have anyone to talk to. And they can't, especially if they're new to an organization, they don't know who to trust. They don't know who to talk to yet. They need somebody to validate what's going on. And they're not sure of everything. And they just need some validation and some guidance and somebody to talk to. And one thing that we come up with is, it's okay to say you don't know. You're not supposed to know everything. You've been there 3 weeks. And by showing that vulnerability, by being willing to listen, you build loyalty, you build trust. And when you're going Mach 2 with your hair on fire, if you don't have trust of the team and or accountability, things can go sideways very quickly.
Yeah, it's incredible. In so many conversations that I have on leadership, working with people, talking to students, every time I get in front of students, it's incredible how one presentation of mine is so different from the previous one. So in the PowerPoint today, just to kind of introduce myself, I stacked all the starting slides, the cover slides of all the presentations I've done, and just thinking about how I viewed leadership at that time, what my examples were, what my wisdom was at that point. And I love that what you brought up is just that general idea of just leaving the environment better than you found it, serving other people. Like if there's anything that I can impart on you, it's kind of just leave it better than you found it. A person, teach them about themselves, guide them to any lessons that they may need. But I've talked to people that are like, no servant leadership. I'm done for whatever reason, their own story. I'm done serving other people. Like I'm done people pleasing.
Yeah.
So people get those two things it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing at all. So I appreciate you bringing up those examples. So Steve, now if you could, why don't you introduce the book, the full title of the book, and how you came across the book that you want to cover?
Yeah, the book is it's right here. Dog-eared, folded down. It's a mess because I've read it a bunch of times.
That's amazing. I love that.
It's called The Lost Art of Connecting by Susan McPherson, who's a fascinating individual in her own right. I came about it. So before I left the workforce, the corporate workforce, I was at SAP, large global software company. And they were great about putting me through training, and I had hundreds of hours of coaching before I even left. I was coaching all their high potentials and academies there, which was super rewarding and so on. Our offices were at Hudson Yards in New York, and I was walking through Hudson Yards one day, and there was a box on one of the desks, and it said, "Take one," and it was that book. And I grabbed it. I think it was September 2022. And I read it, started reading it on the train home. And I was thinking to myself, I'll be darned. This lady thought of everything and wrote it out in such a great manner and with a great methodology of stuff that I've been thinking about for a long time.
Yeah.
But it just encapsulated, it just spells it out really nicely. And that's when the term connecting, that's when I really landed on that. One thing I talk about a lot with my clients and a thought piece that I put out there is how to build successful business relationships. And it's taking a long-term view, and it's connecting, and it's asking people about themselves and not always going for the close, and paying your dues and building a foundation. And the work you do today to establish a relationship with somebody might not pay off ever, might not mean anything for 3 to 5 years, but that's kind of the fun of it, right? So that's why this book resonated with me. And she talks a lot about gather, ask, and do. Those are kind of the 3 cornerstones of what she means and what her philosophy. And gather is think about what you bring to the party. Think about your value. You asked about superpower before. You know, that's a term that people throw around a lot, but it's valuable to think about that. What do you do really well, and what do you bring to the world? Somebody just coming out of college is going to say, well, I just graduated college. I don't know anything. Well, no, that's not the case. You may be a wizard at some software package, or you have
Yeah.
your ear to the ground on what's going on in certain demographics. And you've
Yeah.
got more current knowledge of certain methodologies and so on. So you bring something to the party. And you want to join an organization that appreciates that, right? So gather
Yes.
is think about yourself and think about what your goals are. What's a meaningful connection to me? What do I want to be doing in a few years? And you can get it wrong. I mean, getting it wrong is fine. Just take a shot. So that's gather. And the other word that I love that she uses is being intentional. Be intentional about what you do. Be intentional about how you think about building your connection. Be intentional about where you work, about who you socialize with, about where you live. Think about it. So that's all gather. And then ask is when you meet somebody, don't start with your elevator pitch if you're at an event or whatever. Ask about them. What are you working on that's really interesting right now? Where's your next trip going to be? Where have you been that's fascinating to you? And you find out little tidbits about people. And then you can follow up with, what can I help you with? Who can I introduce you to at some point? And then the do is, if you listen carefully to people, you can then be thought of as a trustworthy person who's responsible and who can be called on, who's reliable, and so on and so forth. So gather, ask, do. I just love those three kind of buckets that she puts it in. And it's kind of a logical progression. Think of yourself first. Ask what you can help people with. Ask what you can do. Ask yourself. And then what are you going to do about it, right? Who are you going to introduce people to? Where are you going to go next? How are you going to be intentional? All these kinds of things.
I love the fact when we get to that point where we realize that it's not just networking, but it's also connection, and that it's also you learning something.
Yeah.
That we're not, graduating college, learning network just to go out and get business, just to go out and get that transaction.
Right.
But it's amazing when you get to that point where, okay, there's something beyond the transaction. Not that it was ever that cold, but we were taught, get your connections, get your contacts, your contracts, whatever it may be. But getting to that point where you walk into a room and you kind of see just like a blank page where you can design conversations. You can get people to speak about themselves. I told the kids in the class today, I'm sure they're graduating in the next year. But I told them, I think one of them had asked me, what would you do differently if you could go back? And I said nothing because I love what I'm doing. Maybe some things here and there.
Sure.
But if I could improve something, I'd be practicing and realizing my current deep appreciation for conversations, for getting to know somebody, for the ability of one word, one phrase, one sentence, one conversation to draw the best of somebody out, to change their life. I said, I could sit down with each of you right now for a 10-minute conversation and change your life in some way. And you could do the same with me. But we have to be, like you said, intentional about it. So such a deep appreciation for that juxtaposition of thinking of how I looked at networking, walking into a big room, nervous when I was younger, to now it's like, granted, I'm an introvert, so I don't like too much energy for too long.
Okay.
But those one-on-one conversations where we can change the world, especially with everything that's going on in the world today, we forget what kind of impact we can have on the people that, even if I only meet you for 5 minutes or an hour-long class like those students, something that we exchange can change worlds, can create ripple effects in each of us that impacts how we operate going forward. So I love just that you're pointing out that the power of connection. I think this is such a timely book.
You brought up two key areas in your discussion right there that are fascinating and point to exactly why this is important. and why this can be done, right? And you can change lives by having a conversation. You are a self-proclaimed introvert. How good are you at this because you're an introvert?
It's like what you said before, one of your strengths because of what you're doing now is your ability to observe. So I spent so much of my life, half my life, kind of like a prisoner to introversion. And then as you become more confident, you come out of your shell a little more. When you're speaking about what you love to do, you can talk for days.
Right.
But all that observation that I did in those years, paying attention to people's intricacies, their nuances, the way they talk to each other, that they were surprised by a certain conversation. It's like, well, didn't you hear that you did this, this, and this, and you didn't ask them about that, that, and that?
Yeah.
So again, even though they seem so far from apart from each other, introversion and connection.
Yeah.
If you tap into it, it can lead you to a great connection. Just like what you said, Steve, adaptability just based on observation.
So an introvert walks into a room, and no, this is not a joke. This isn't like a horse walks into a bar.
And he's bald and he's got glasses on. Okay. All right.
So an introvert walks into a conference, right? What's the feeling that a typical introvert might have walking into, say, a trade meeting or a conference or some kind of industry event? What's the first feeling an introvert's going to have?
Well, I mean, the tricky part of that question is every introvert is different.
Okay. Fair enough.
Every introvert is different, but I get where you're going with that. The tricky part is just kind of, we like to control our energy.
Yeah.
So when you're in a convention or a networking event, you got to be on consistently.
Right.
So my brothers and sisters that are extroverts, like you thrive off of that. Again, if I'm talking about something that's important to me, I can find that energy to keep going.
Yeah.
But for most introverts, it's not about lack of curiosity. It's not lack of them being interesting or anything, but it's mostly about energy level. So now I got to be on for the next hour, and I got to give the same spiel to like at least 10 different people. There are times after these conversations, this podcast, where they're amazing, but because I'm on the whole time, I could curl up under my desk and just kind of unwind. And I share all this because I don't think extroverts and introverts know enough about each other.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. I have clients who are introverts who the thought of going into an event where they don't know anybody can be paralyzing. But you have to take that leap of faith and start talking to people. And we talk about that. So you set a goal, right? I'm going to meet 3 people. Mm-hmm. I'm going to share 3 things about myself, and I'm going to learn 3 things. And if after that you're exhausted, okay, go sit down and have a soda or a coffee or something, right? Go relax. But just nibble at it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Meet 3 people, share 3 things about yourself, learn 3 things.
Yeah.
And so maybe the next one you do 5. Or maybe the next one you do 2 because you were horrified. I don't know. But it's a start, right?
Yeah, that came up in the talk to the students today too, where I mentioned I'm an introvert, and I talked to some of my friends who are introverts, and we realized like you have to meet the world halfway, or you don't have to, and it doesn't have to be halfway, but you do have to step out of your zone of comfort or wherever you are,
right?
If you want that, you can play the slow game. You can get there being who you are,
right?
But how much opportunity might you be missing out on because you're not taking, like you said, just that little nibble each time? So that's always an important point. I think there's a responsibility, even if you fall on the extroverted side of things, making sure that you're listening to others. If you fall on the introverted side of things, making sure that you're sharing enough about yourself. And like I said, it's great to learn back and forth. I mean, some of my closest friends are extroverts. I went to school at Hofstra, so there was a lot of people from Long Island.
Yeah. They don't tend to be shy.
No, not at all. not at all. So I was the quietest one in the group, and just watching just how loud and just expressive they were. It was culture shock, and I'm in Connecticut. It's only like 2 hours away, but
Different.
I learned a lot, and I'm glad I went to that environment because it showed me maybe Connecticut would have been still too laid back and I wouldn't be where I am because I didn't get exposure to that expression,
Yeah. Yeah.
learning it, seeing it in action.
It's a different clock speed down there.
Oh, is it ever? I love it though. If I go, somebody had said on here, they came on and we were talking. They're like, "Are you from New York?" I'm like, "No, I'm in Connecticut." But I think the weekend before I had gone down to Long Island to visit friends. So as soon as I go down there, that accent that I picked up just comes right back into that. Yeah, yeah. Um, Steve, so I'm curious for you in reading this book, what changed in you? Even though it's interesting that you brought up, I read this book and it was like, wow. So it's like she took the ideas and what I kind of had been living for years and kind of articulated it in such a way. So you knew the material. Obviously, you said she puts it in such a way that you find
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So what changed in you from reading the book? Did you look at things differently? Did you approach things differently?
Look at things differently. Look at, this is just, life is a grand experiment, right? And I love being reminded of certain things, right? So the intentional word is something that is just so important to me. Just be intentional, right? Ask questions. It just validates some of the things I normally do, but it put them front and center. One of the concepts that is that's a consistent theme throughout the book is hosting gatherings. She grew up in a family that her parents always had people over, and they were always reaching out, and they were always engaging in the neighborhood and this and that. And I think all of us throughout our lives have a situation where we weren't included in something we wanted to be included with, or we were left out of something. And it can kind of hurt. So the concept is be a host, be a networking node, invite a couple people for breakfast or coffee, introduce them, and then say, this was fun. Let's do this in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And you each bring another person.
Yeah.
So now we go from 3 to 5.
Yeah.
And then you're meeting that next level out. And that was the
Yes.
other thing that was really interesting to me. People talk about, like on LinkedIn, your first and second level connections.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what about the third level out? That's when the real power is. The third level out, because that's a whole nother world of people that are tangentially connected to you through somebody, maybe, but they can open up a whole nother market,
absolutely.
a whole nother client set, a whole nother way of thinking, a whole nother source of intelligence. So hosting events, being a network node, expanding that way, getting out of your comfort zone in terms of reaching out further.
Yeah, I have a friend on Facebook that they're doing this in their home where they're inviting different people. Like every Friday, they have a dinner party at their house.
Right.
I don't know how they find the people. If it's, obviously some are degree 1,
Right.
then some are degree 2.
Right.
But yeah, their goal is, I think they're part of a Facebook group that seeks to revitalize their area. So they're inviting neighbors over.
Yeah.
Like neighbors that maybe you see, but don't necessarily interact with.
Right.
And I think that's a great idea because I think, even in my neighborhood, I say hi to people, we're friendly, but I feel like I'm more curious about them.
Right.
So I love that idea of hosting, of really saying I'm intentional about us learning about each other. And it's not something you see too often. It's always like an event that you have to buy a ticket to, but it's never, in some instances, come into my home, you're more than invited. This is a communal thing. So I think that's a great reminder.
Right. The other thing that she brought up, the other concept is when times are good, that's when you really need to be out there. Not when you're stuck for business. Not when you're really alone or in a rut. When things are going well, that's when you need to push even further.
What's your reasoning for that?
Take advantage of the energy. You portray yourself in a more positive light. Now, again, the context of that conversation and that part of the book was around building a business, and that's the way I read. That's the way I read this.
Yeah.
I mean,
of course.
That's the context I frame most of this in is building a business and increasing your reach and so on. So it's like momentum gets momentum.
Absolutely.
Right? Winning breeds more
begets
winning. Winning begets winning. So when you've got momentum, run with it. Don't say I've got enough business now, I don't need to go to that event. No, that's when you need to go.
Yeah, because that energy just kind of flows through you.
Comes out of you.
Yeah.
It's like when you don't need the business, that's when you get it.
Yeah, because it's kind of like an animal when they can sense that another animal is nervous or weak, or we have more of that kind of perception than we give ourselves credit for. So if somebody shows up and they're not quite comfortable enough or they're too nervous, you can sense that, and it just kills the entire vibe, especially for that person.
Yeah.
But if they go when everything's good, there's this abundance too.
Right.
That gives off that vibe as well.
Another concept, John, if I may,
absolutely,
is along the lines of 10 touches. And that is kind of like the phrase I have, and the phrase I talk about a lot of time is a little, a lot. So rather than go for an hour and a half with somebody, go for a half hour, make it really count. Or send a text or send an email. I know you're going to this event. Wish you best of luck. And a little, a lot over time builds trust and credibility. And over the course of a couple of years, if you've reached out 8 times and then you come back and you say, I have this issue that I'm working with and I think you can help me out with it, people are more willing to help you. And the converse of that is 911 networking, which is a pet peeve of mine. And this isn't in the book. This is just something.
Yeah.
Right? I know people who are in my network. The only time I hear from them is when they just lost a job.
Yeah.
Where were you the last 3 or 4 years? I don't even know what you're doing anymore.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a credibility thing. So 10 touches and avoid 911 networking.
I love
that.
They
kind of go hand in hand. And
absolutely.
10 it doesn't have to be 10. It could be 5.
Yeah.
It could be 3.
Meaningful, intentional, genuine.
With a message. Not just checking in. Not wanted to touch base.
Yeah.
It's, John, I know you're giving this prezo at this college in the Hartford area next month. I came upon this article, might be relevant.
Little things like that.
Or in May, how did the presentation go last month?
Yeah. It's incredible how, again, just a word, a phrase, a conversation, I can't overemphasize just how much that means that somebody is seen.
Yeah, that's a big thing, for sure.
It's just seen, like really seen, not in passing because we're both reactive to the environment. Oh, good luck. But like really sit down for coffee or in a conversation asking about them. So I would impress upon that again is just understanding to whoever's listening and watching, just that power of what your words mean to somebody.
And it's being seen, John, and it's being seen in the right way. And the reason I bring that up is I had a client last year who, brilliant, worked for a well-respected research firm and had just gotten a new boss. The firm had just been bought by private equity, which is happening a lot, right? And a new boss just got dropped in. And she'd been with this firm, I think 10 or 15 years. This new boss gets dropped in. They're deploying a bunch of people in India for, hardcore research that they need. And they had the expertise there. So they contracted with a bunch of folks in India. The new boss was under the impression that this whole India group would be reporting to him and working for him and blah, blah, blah. And she and I are in a conversation. and she's loaded for bear. She goes, I have a call with him in an hour, and I'm going to let him have it. I'm going to let him know that that's not the way we do things around here, and this is my group to run, and blah, 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 blah. So we chatted for a bit, and I said, can I challenge you on this for a second? And she said, what? I said, how do you think that's going to go? Well, he may fight me for it, but I'm ready. I have all the statistics to back me up. How is a fight going to be able to move the ball in the direction you want it to? How might you show that you really know the workflow, the value, and the pitfalls of if he goes into this head first and he doesn't get the buy-in of the group and he doesn't really understand how the information flows? She goes, oh, it could totally trip him up. I said, do you want to make him look good or do you want to make him look bad? She goes, I want to make him look good. I said, how do you want to look? She goes, I want to look good. I said, so let's talk through a bunch of questions you can ask him to point out what he might not have thought about. 2 hours later, after her call with her new boss, she calls me up and she said, oh my gosh, that worked like magic. And I said, how do you mean? She said, after we got done, he called me back 5 minutes later and he said, I just want to thank you for helping me see things in a different way. He goes, I'm new. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know who to ask. You opened up my eyes and probably made my job easier. So she was seen in a totally different way just by hitting the reset button and reframing how she went into this meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, that plays into what I mentioned before, where you don't want somebody else to set the narrative for you. So how are you going to set that tone? Are you going to be a champion for your group, for your organization, and help this person succeed? Or
Right.
are you going to go nuclear on a phone call and then it's all going to collapse? So then again, our emotions get hijacked and we need coaches like you to kind of ask us those questions of, okay, let's take a beat and think about how it plays out. Like you have to game this out. How's it going to go depending on which path you take?
Yeah.
Steve, for you, what other books stand out to you? Do you have any examples of a couple books that stand out to you in terms of making that same kind of impression on you?
Geez, there are a bunch. I have them over on my bookshelf here. The book of coaching stands out to me. Any of the John Maxwell stuff stands out to me. I'm fascinated by biographies as well, like the Thomas Jefferson stuff, Ben Franklin. I've read a lot of stuff, read a lot of things by Stephen Ambrose because I'm history. I like history. I like World War II history and stuff like that. And I just find real life stories about teamwork and bravery and sticking to the mission just fascinating. Any of the stuff by Gladwell I think is great. What the Dog Saw, things like that. Tipping Point.
What's the Dog Saw one?
I've got it over on my bookshelf. I read it a really long time ago.
Okay.
It's basically how to look at things a little bit differently.
Yeah. Yeah, enjoy Gladwell's writing. I haven't checked out those other books, but if you're recommending it, I got to write it down somewhere.
I've got a list I can send you, John. I'm constantly building a list. Yeah.
Absolutely. Steve, in wrapping up, is there anything else you want to share these days that maybe I didn't ask about? Anything at all that I might have missed that you want to share? The floor is yours.
What I wanted to share were 3 thoughts on just to encapsulate the conversation and in service to the listeners and watchers of this podcast. There's 3 elite habits that connectors have. And I found this to be really resonating to me. They make introductions constantly. They're constantly thinking of how they can help people, how they can make introductions and make their life easier, others' lives easier. They practice thoughtful follow-up. Again, not just checking in, but I know you're giving this presentation. Can I help with that? Here's an article that might be relevant. And they nurture relationships before they need to. Right?
Yeah.
That is huge. You got to, Stephen Covey, years and years ago, right, wrote his book, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And he talks about sharpening the saw, learning material in such a way that you can teach it because it forces you to take another depth level of understanding. But one of the concepts that I use to this day, and I've used 1,000 times, is the emotional bank account. Fill the emotional bank account of others so that when and if you're vulnerable, when and if you need some advice, when and if you need some help, you can go to them and they have an impression of you that you're not a taker. This person has given me value their whole life. This person has been a positive addition, and I don't mind sharing with them. I don't mind helping them. In fact, I welcome the opportunity to do it. So build connections before you need them. And I think in this world right now, when there's so much divisiveness and so many reasons to think that we're at odds with each other in so many cases, building those bridges intentionally, I think, is a really valuable thing to do in your personal and your professional life.
Yeah. God, so many thoughts.
We can do this again.
Oh my God. We could do this all day long. But before wrapping up, the power of trust is amazing.
Yeah.
Because on here, there have been touchy subjects, stories of trauma, stories of healing.
Yeah.
So there have been times where I've asked questions and maybe they were personal questions, but I like to think, and I talked to my guest afterwards and they were like, no, that was completely fine.
Yeah.
But I feel like I have the courage to ask certain questions because I try to build up trust before we get to this conversation.
Yeah.
The amount of times I reach out to people that I'm with, making sure that I have everything that they would prefer in terms of bio, in terms of the graphic, like all these little nuances. But I want to make sure that they understand how seriously I take this, not just for me, but for them as well. So I think I forget what the other conversation was about specifically, but there is that importance. It was a book from the last season, Radical Humility, where it's about being humble so that you can build up that trust so that when you need to call on somebody else, they trust you. And while you were talking about that, what came to mind was the vulnerable leader, that if I open up, when you open up to somebody and you say, I don't know what I'm doing, that to me, I viewed, as you were talking about it, their emotional bank. Because if you can open up to them, they're like, this person trusts me.
Yes.
Okay. So they're not just going to pretend to know what's going on with all our lives on the line.
Right.
They trust me. So, okay. And as you show that vulnerability, it builds up the emotional bank with that person so that when you need them, they trust the leader. So it's all about, listen, like the feedback sandwich is like, I'm gonna build up trust in a minute with the first bun. Then I'm gonna lay it in, and then I'm gonna give you some positive stuff.
Right.
No, like you should be building up that trust in every event, in every behavior, in every interaction. Like, and it doesn't even have to be phrasing like I trust you or this or that or compliments. Those should be there, granted. But just like the way you operate, the way you carry yourself around somebody, the way you look at somebody, the way you ask them questions, people know what certain actions mean. So I appreciate you I love how we tied all of that in together.
Great. I appreciate the conversation, John. Thank you.
Steve, one last question. When you were moving from corporate to the coaching job, was that what triggered that? Was that just kind of, okay, I'm going to retire and then semi-retire and then not retire at all and pivot to coaching? What was it was that in the plan to leave at a certain point and then figure out what you wanted to do afterwards?
I had a plan to leave at a certain point and do this.
Okay.
And I was offered an opportunity to do that. in a very positive way.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
John, I got lucky, and luck is when opportunity meets preparation. And I had the
Absolutely.
opportunity and I was prepared.
Yeah. I wish I had imparted that on those students, like making your own luck, what that really looks like. So,
When are you
and
talking
again,
to them next? When are you talking to them next?
This was an event that the university held. I think it was like a 3-day event where they just kind of brought in all these different kinds of speakers.
Right.
But there's an opportunity to go back kind of like on a semesterly basis. I want to get back on campus and focus on that as volunteering. So
Right.
I'll be, and that's everything I pick up from these series is something that I remember talking to my buddy Steve on this podcast and he brought this up.
Yeah.
This will come up. That's the beautiful part about these talks.
I've listened to a few of them, and the collective wisdom out there is wonderful to see. It really
it's incredible.
is. Yeah.
I'm lucky only because, we all have our LinkedIn profiles and we all have the posts that people share, but that's only scratching the tip of the iceberg. So I'm grateful for you for being here, my friend.
Thank you. And I will echo something that you brought up a little earlier in how seriously you take this. The prep materials that you send out, the timeline that you send out, everything that you do in terms of setting this up and making it easy for us to participate is tremendous. You put a lot of thought into it and you do a wonderful job, John. Thanks for this forum.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And that's part of that trust building,
Yeah.
It's not intentional to get, so I can ask them the hard question. I already built up this trust, but if I'm going to ask somebody to go along with me on a project, I want to demonstrate to them that I'm taking it seriously. And, it's their capital, it's their reputation, it's their brand, whatever you want to call it. So I want to demonstrate that I take it seriously. So I appreciate that feedback and that compliment. And again, Steve shared The Lost Art of Connecting by Susan McPherson. Steve, thank you again for your time, my friend.
Appreciate it, John. Thank you.
And if there's anything I might have missed, there's so much to cover, limited time, please let me know. I'll reach out to Steve, see what kind of insights, guidance, suggestions, recommendations he'll be able to share back with me. In the meantime, thank you for watching, listening, and subscribing, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.